And good morning. Welcome back to Advanced English Composition. I have provided you a link in the LMS to my book in PDF format. So this is my book. It's a free PDF this semester. I don't recommend that you go print it out. Just look at the PDF version on your PDF program on your computer. For now, I will probably revise this a couple of times during the semester and re-upload it, so it's probably not worth your time to print out the whole thing. Don't print out the whole thing. If you need to, just print out the pages that we're talking about during a particular lesson. So first, we're not gonna also cover everything in the book this semester. I'm gonna skip some things, maybe add some things later on. So first, we want to talk today about essay structure and then start talking about argumentation next week. So essay structure, if you could turn to, I think it's page 47, section 5.1. It says essay structure. Take a quick look at just the, particularly the first half of the page, and just review, pause the video and talk to each other for a minute. Review what do these things mean, and then maybe talk about some of the questions down below. All right, so pause the video and talk for a bit. Okay, most essays begin with a clear introduction, an introductory paragraph. And we are going to look at introductions maybe a little bit, maybe next week or so. And usually the introduction provides kind of background information, but in academic writing it's going to be, it's still going to be fairly informative. It's not going to be overly general background. We'll talk about that later. But the background or whatever elements are in the introduction typically lead up to a thesis statement. So thesis is like the main point or main idea. For example, the thesis of this book is such and such, or in Mr. Chomsky's main thesis is that US media are controlled by corporations or something like that. Someone's main idea, main point. In an academic essay or a research paper, we're talking about a thesis statement, which is a specific statement of the main point of the entire essay or paper. And it's usually an explicit, specific, direct statement in the introductory paragraph. And often the thesis statement is also followed by maybe a clause or a sentence after it might outline the main points of the paper that are going to be used to support the thesis, the claim of the thesis. Do all academic papers follow this kind of outline? The outline that we're talking about, thesis, and then the body components. Usually, sometimes there might be occasional instances, especially in humanities writing, where one doesn't exactly follow the structure. That happens sometimes, but that's usually done by a good writer who knows what he or she is doing and makes his or her ideas clear anyway. In the body paragraphs, you have usually a main point. Each paragraph has a main point. And are there just 3 body paragraphs? No. In real academic writing, often a lot more than that. They tend to kind of cohere around 3 or 4 or 5 main points. You might have several paragraphs that together develop one main point, and there are subpoints, and each paragraph is a subpoint. And these main points are often stated specifically in what's called a topic sentence. So in a body paragraph, there is usually a topic sentence. Is it always the first sentence of a paragraph? No. It could be the second sentence, it could be the last sentence, the next to last sentence in a paragraph. Depends really on the kind of writing you're doing and how you're developing your points and the nature of the topic. And again, occasionally writers do violate this. Maybe sometimes in humanities writing, people might violate this pattern, but usually that's a good writer who really knows what he or she is doing as a writer and has a good reason to violate the rules. So for your purposes, of course, I recommend that you follow the structure. Now, these terms might be a little different from other writing classes, different books, different instructors and professors use slightly different terminology. I will talk about topic sentences, and that's kind of the main idea sentence of a body paragraph. By the way, we talk about body sections or components. Some students say body parts. So I know in Korean you say pata, you borrowed the English word pata and you use it a lot. But in academic English we prefer more specific terms like section, a body section or a body paragraph. If you say body parts, it sounds like you're talking about arms and legs. It sounds like you're talking about CSI kind of thing. Oh, there's the victim is arms over there and the leg is over there. And okay, so don't say body parts. This sounds weird. It sounds like you've been watching too much CSI or stuff. The crime show, in case you don't know. Body paragraphs then support the claims of the topic sentences with some kind of evidence and support, explanation, details, and we will talk about that later. And finally, a conclusion is often a restatement of the main idea, or a brief comment on why this is important, the implication of this, or the relevance of this topic. Okay, we'll talk about introductions and conclusions later. So most often academic papers follow this kind of structure. There are going to be other kinds of structures and elements, especially in longer detailed research papers, which we will talk about after the midterm. And we'll talk about citation styles. We might talk about paragraph styles later on. Thesis statements on page 49. Section 5.2.2, I just have some sample thesis statements. Pause the video and discuss these for a minute. Do these look like good thesis statements? Why or why not? Could they be fixed? Could they be improved? So pause and discuss this for a bit. Okay, in section 5.2.2, sample thesis statements on page 48, we have several potential thesis statements. One, humans should relocate to Mars. Hopefully you recognize that's a really bad one. What humans? All humans? Explorers? Scientists? What kind of humans are we talking about? Relocate, when? What kind of relocation? What kind of purpose? Are we talking about colonization? Are we talking about science research? Are we talking about taking stress off of the planet Earth? I mean, what kind of time frame and purpose and numbers are we talking about here? It's terribly vague because you could come up with all kinds of arguments for going to Mars, but it really to make one single coherent essay that makes sense, you're going to have to focus on a particular purpose and what kind of time frame and what kind of people do you have in mind. Since Mars is really, I mean, would you want to go to Mars? Would you want to hop on Elon Musk's spaceship and go to Mars? Be the first citizens to die a heroic death from radiation on Mars? Yeah, I don't think I would. Maybe we should relocate some of our political leaders, particularly those in my country. That would be a good start. Send them to Mars. Number two, because government surveillance violates our liberties, mass collection of personal data by intelligence agencies should be discontinued. Sound good? Personally, I think this sounds good. It's pretty specific, it's pretty clear. You can kind of guess where the essay is going to go. So one good thing about a good thesis statement is it gives you an idea of where the essay is going to go. What is it going to talk about? And the reason, because government surveillance violates our liberties, that gives you a good idea maybe of where the essay might go. the first body paragraph or so might talk about this reason, establishing the claim that it violates our liberties, and then addressing later in the body the mass collection and then maybe alternative methods the government could use to accomplish its goals of security and intelligence. 3. Organ donors' families should be compensated for organ donations to provide more organs for needy patients and to cut the black market selling organs. Sound good? Some students will say no. I think more often more students say yes, and I think so. If, for example, the reasons given in the second part of the sentence form the basis of the main points in the body paragraphs. So some students will say, oh, this is kind of long. Well, actually for academic writing, it's not that long. You see long sentences like that all the time in academic writing. So the main thesis is the first part, that donors or donors' families should be compensated. That's your thesis, your main idea. A thesis sometimes is followed by kind of an overview. Different books call it different things, but kind of an overview of the main supporting arguments that will be developed in the body. And so if that's the purpose of the rest of the sentence, then this would work as a thesis. The first body paragraph will probably talk about more organs for needy patients. And then the next and later paragraph in the body might talk about black markets and solving the black market problem. So if done right, number 3 could be a good thesis. Number 4, kind of similar situation. Some people might say it's kind of long. Excuse me. But first part is probably the thesis. They should portray non-traditional families, not traditional families. And in the second part, this would work if this is maybe kind of an overview of main points in the body. Maybe the first body paragraph or first few body paragraphs will talk about the need to not just portray traditional families, but the need to also portray non-traditional families. And then later, one body paragraph might talk about single parent families and maybe talk about examples of such TV shows, say in other countries, in different countries. And then another body paragraph might talk about divorced parent families, and then remarried or blended families. A blended family is like 2 people, each has a child, 1 or more children, and they marry and they form a new family. The new family, the new siblings, brothers and sisters, are a blended family. And then same gender parents. Another paragraph might talk about same gender or same-sex couples, same-sex parents. So if done right, that could be a good thesis statement. The first part is the thesis, and the rest is kind of an overview of main points to be discussed in the body. If that's the reason for mentioning single, divorced, remarried, same-gender parents, then if that serves as an overview of main points to come in the body, then this would work. 5, yes, this is a good thesis statement. Foreign aid should be given via NGOs and private groups, and the rest provides maybe justification and explanation, which will probably be developed in the body paragraphs. Body paragraphs talking about past problems, and then body paragraphs explaining how aid through NGOs and private groups could be done and why it would work better. So number 5 can be a good thesis statement. Okay, part about topic sentences. Okay, pause the video and look at the bottom of page 47, 40, I think it's 49, section 5.2.4. Just briefly talk about these 5.2.4 sample topic sentences in body paragraphs. Would these work? So pause and discuss this for a minute. Okay, section 5.2.3 sample topic sentences. Quickly discuss these. Number 1, It's generally okay, except for that first part, I want to argue. So this is called self-reference. The writer is referring to himself or herself and or to what the writer is doing. We generally don't use first person in academic writing. Occasionally in social science and humanities writing, we might use first person if we have to, but it's not too often, and we prefer to use we if we have to do so. For example, we decided to do this experiment because, or we chose this research method because. So occasionally you might see that, but I want to sounds too informal, and I want to argue. Well, that's redundant. It's not necessary. The purpose of an academic essay or an academic paper is to argue for something. You're arguing for something and presenting some ideas and trying to show that they are valid or good. So in a sense, you're arguing for something anyway. Don't need to say that. Strike that part, and the rest of this would be okay as a thesis or a topic sentence. Number 2, well written and would work well as a thesis or as a topic sentence, depending on the context. 3 is kind of weird. Where's the topic sentence? It's kind of hard to tell. This is poorly written, and the funny thing is this is written by a native speaker. It's a British writer. It's in an academic book, and I pulled this out because this is so badly done. It's kind of a very choppy style. The writing flow is choppy, like you're chopping vegetables with your knife. Chop, 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 chop. It's that kind of choppy flow. This is really poorly done, and you can't tell what the main idea is. I rewrote it as number 4, which is much better. It's clear. It presents a clear idea, a topic, a main idea to be developed in the rest of the paragraph, and it just flows much better. A single sentence, a long sentence, but yeah, that's normal in academic writing. I'm not going to push you to write long sentences like this, but do know this is normal in academic writing. Okay, topic sentences. So this is just a little review. Different books might use different terms for some of these things. We're going to call them topic sentences in this class. On the next page, section 5.3, I think it's about page 51 or so. I'm using an older version of my book here. Essay sample number 1. So here we have a student writing to apply for a kind of 4th-year college research program. So it's sort of like a personal statement, an application for a research project. Kind of short. I want you to look at this. Pause the video and look at this for a little while. Discuss this with someone else. I want you to look at the different elements, the different essay elements, the introduction, thesis, body paragraphs, main ideas, evidence, support, and also the use of citations. The writer cites some sources. Excuse me. Are the sources cited well? Are they used well? Do they make sense? So I want you to pause the video and talk to each other for a few minutes about this short personal essay. So pause and we'll come back in a few minutes. If you're in a scholarship committee or a research committee as a professor making decisions about which students to accept to this special kind of senior research program, would you accept this person? Why or why not? Do you think this person deserves a chance at a special research opportunity, maybe a scholarship that goes with it? Well, let's look at this. The dictionary defines vision as a sense of insight, purpose, and direction. That's boring. God, that is a boring start. Why would you use a dictionary definition if it's a word that we know? I mean, the only reason you would begin with a definition is if you're defining a technical term in a more technical paper. So in philosophy, radical skepticism is defined as such and such, such and such. Or, you know, in laboratory research and linguistics, such X is defined as blah, blah, blah. You define a special term. Not like this. This is mundane. This is like saying the sky is blue. This is boring. This is not informative. We expect, even in the introduction, something that's kind of informative, that doesn't insult our intelligence. This is just boring. A common vision, drive and passion. Okay, some of the stuff feels a bit too flowery or fancy. Okay, okay, this is a personal application, so some use of I is probably okay here, like in your last essay assignment. Don't forget that, by the way. Some of it sounds kind of nice, but some of this sounds like, I know that X university is my future. This sounds so flowery. It sounds insincere, and it might work in an older Korean context. But today, and especially in English and in English-speaking academic culture, this would sound insincere. It sounds like you're just trying to BS the committee, the scholarship committee. I will explain why you deserve to be admitted to the senior research program. Why don't you just present a reason there? Don't announce what you're going to do. That's boring. It's kind of like the topic sentence, I will argue that. That's boring, okay? Obviously, the essay is supposed to do that. It's supposed to explain why you think you deserve to be admitted to this program. Don't say that. That's meaningless. That's not informative. Instead, present a reason, a main reason here. Present a real thesis, a main argument, or a collection of related arguments that can sort of form some kind of a thesis that say, I think I deserve to be admitted to this program because X, Y, and Z. Present a real reason, okay? Don't just announce your intentions, but do it here. Are there clear topic sentences? I tend to think not. Some things are kind of nice. I work with diverse groups of students. Again, the person is in the second paragraph trying to talk about how great X university is. Sounds like a commercial advertisement, not sincere. A lot of this in the second paragraph are kind of general feel-good statements which lack content or substance, and they lack sincerity. There's nothing specific here. There's nothing really specific, and it's not about reasons for why this person deserves a scholarship or a research program opportunity. This is vague general statements about the university. It's in the next paragraph on the next page. For my senior research project, I plan to investigate the effects of da-da-da. Okay, one paragraph. Is there enough detail in this paragraph? No. It's a vague description of a research project. It sounds interesting, but like, what's your goal? Okay, if it's a research project, what's your goal? What's your intention? What do you hope to find out? Or what's your motivation for this? What's a rationale? What do you expect to find? What are your research methods going to be? How are you going to conduct your research? What things are you going to look at? What materials are you going to look at? What ideas or theories are you going to examine? The writer talks in very general sense about things. Wikipedia. Do you cite Wikipedia? No. And you may know that you shouldn't cite Wikipedia sources, but every semester in my writing classes or my other classes, I get one student at least, who tries to cite Wikipedia, even though we keep saying, no, it's not a good source. It's very general information. Now, some of the references at the end of the Wikipedia article might be good, but Wikipedia articles themselves may not be reliable or too general. Don't cite Wikipedia. There's a couple of sources that are cited as array. 2018, that's a way of citing sources in social sciences or humanities papers. Sources briefly cited. Does it look like the writer of this essay really read the source, the the Ray article on militarism. How is this relevant to your research project? Why are you citing this? The writer of this essay kind of has one general sentence citing Ray 2018, but it doesn't look like the essay writer really read that source. It doesn't look like he read the article and really understood the article or how it applies to his research project. Very general statements. I believe Roman militarism. Okay, I believe that. It's kind of too self-referential, self-reference. This paragraph needs a lot more detailed explanation. This should probably be developed and broken up into at least 2 or 3 paragraphs explaining the research project and the goals and the motivation and applications to maybe. But then isn't it too much? If you're talking about militarism in ancient Rome, that's fine for a research project. If the writer wants to talk about modern examples, that in itself could be a whole different research project. This is really like 2 research projects. One is militarism and attitudes in ancient Rome. The other one would be militarism and attitudes in the UK or the US. That's 2 or 3 research projects. There's a lack of focus here. You could talk about implications maybe as not part of your research project, but maybe as a rationale for the research project. But the research project itself should be more focused. Are you going to just focus on ancient Rome? Or focus on the UK, militarism and attitudes in the UK or in the US. But don't try to do all of this in one project. And then the writer cites Maslow, the famous psychologist. How is this relevant here? I don't know. It seems like the writer is just throwing in citations to kind of decorate the paper. Kind of citation decoration. Oh, let's just throw in some citations. Maslow sounds impressive, the famous psychologist. It's not relevant. Forget it. Find more sources, more specific sources that are relevant, and show that you've actually read them. It seems like the writer here has not read these sources other than the Wikipedia article. The conclusion is not bad, actually, but it just needs more content, more meat in the body paragraphs. Okay, hopefully we have time to go on to the next one, the next essay sample, page 53 on language education in Korea. So section 5.4, essay sample number 2 on language education in Korea. Same thing, pause the video and discuss this, the elements of the essay and how well it uses sources. So pause the video and discuss this. And we are back. All right, so the essay starts with a personal example, an anecdote, a personal story. Is this good for an academic essay? I'm not going to say that there's a rule against it, but it's probably not the preferred thing to do. It might be okay in a freshman paper. In a first-year college paper where the writing is a bit semi-formal, it might be okay. But once you get into more formal writing in advanced classes, your 3rd or 4th year of college, or in graduate school, like for a master's degree program, saksa program, not really. It's not really the best way to start an essay. So again, this might be fine for a first-year course paper. Not the best way for a more advanced paper. So instead, you might start with something kind of more objective background information. Or instead of one person's personal story, maybe some survey data or a published article that is maybe from a valid source that describes some people's experiences, but it's, you know, from a published source that's credible. Might be better options. Other than that, the introduction is fine, I think. You've got kind of a thesis statement in around line, I think it's around line 12 or 11. Policies need to be tailored to the realistic language needs of particular students. And I would say that's probably a thesis statement. And maybe even the next sentence together might form part of a thesis statement. And then you've got kind of an overview of main points to come in the body. Actually, maybe their actual academic and career needs for English, that could actually be part of an overview statement, a main point in the body. Not focusing just on English, not just American English, or imposing the same requirements for all students. So that works pretty well. Those are kind of maybe main points that are kind of overviewed in the introductory paragraph, the intro, which will become main points later in the body paragraph. Second paragraph talks about sociolinguistics, the sociolinguistic concept of the expanding, was it the first and second and expanding or third circle. Is this a main point? Not really. This is laying groundwork for some main arguments in the rest of the essay. So we have an intro paragraph and we have body paragraphs, but sometimes in between, after the intro, there is sometimes a background paragraph or background section, which provides maybe key background information for readers who need some more information before the writer can go on to the first point of the body. Or, in this case, it's kind of laying some foundation, some framework for the main arguments in the body to come. So, a background paragraph, if it's not, too long compared to the rest of the essay, and some students will say this is a bit long, maybe, compared to the length of the whole essay. But a background paragraph can be effective for kind of laying the foundation for the arguments that are going to be developed in the following body paragraphs. So this is a background paragraph, and it's actually not uncommon in academic research papers and in published academic articles. Next paragraph at the bottom, or kind of line 32, since English is not a daily language. Okay, so that's kind of starting a next main point. And there are a couple of points here about the focus of English education. So basically that English education needs to have a proper focus in Korea. I agree. The next paragraph, English skills and abilities vary according to students' needs, and the education system needs to consider this. Good topic sentence. So these paragraphs develop topic sentences. I think you could say that maybe a little more support, especially for the one on page 54. It starts on line 15, English skills and ability needed will vary. Probably that needs some more support, so maybe some more sources cited, some more explanation and details, some facts and statistics and data, for example, or research evidence would be good there. But otherwise it's not bad. And next, not all students need higher English skills, and it can lead to motivation problems. That's kind of not anticipated in the intro paragraph. That's a good point. It's an important point, but can you really develop this here in a whole essay? Motivation is kind of a complex topic, and it's kind of just inserted here, and it's not really developed much. There are no sources cited for this important concept. It should either be left out, or it should be developed a lot more in detail here with actual supporting information and research and sources, or it should be a separate essay. The stuff about motivation could be a separate essay by itself, because you can consider all of this stuff, and it's kind of hard to make it all cohere together and flow well in a single coherent essay. You could make the motivation stuff cohere if you developed it more carefully and make it fit with the rest of the essay, the flow of main ideas. Last body paragraph on the top of page 55 says if universities want to implement Younggang or EMI policies, they need to be carefully considered. There are research sources cited here. It's mainly here that sources are cited. Why are sources not cited in as much in the rest of the body paragraphs where important claims are made but need support from research evidence? So there are some good ideas and contents in this last body paragraph. This is maybe the one that really actually cites sources And maybe some things could be explained a bit more here too, but overall not bad. And okay, nice conclusion. You've got references. These are clearly very academic references. Of course, you should only cite academic references if you can really actually read and understand them and use them intelligently in your papers. And we are going to talk about using sources and the different formats for citing sources. I don't know what formats you've learned in your past writing courses here. There are several that you should probably be aware of and be familiar with, depending on what kind of stuff you specialize in. If you're going to specialize in literature studies courses, you're going to need to know a system called the MLA. If you're going to focus more on apply linguistics or research linguistics, empirical linguistics, where you do kind of research with people, you need to know the APA system, which is commonly used in social sciences. If you're going to do theoretical linguistics, maybe the Chicago or the APA, Chicago Manual System. Or if you're going to do, as a language major, if you're going to focus more on culture studies, media studies, you need to probably know the Chicago Manual, maybe the MLA. So these are kind of three, the most important citation systems in our fields: Chicago, MLA, and APA. And I'll give you an overview of all three and kind of let you learn more on your own depending on what you need. Kind of think about which one is more important to you. Are you kind of the humanities person or specifically literature? Because Chicago Manual is generally used for a lot of humanities fields. Media, culture studies, theoretical linguistics, MLA for literature, APA for kind of social science and linguistic research. Okay, so well, that is all for today. This has been a lot. Next we're going to talk about source citation systems and start talking about argumentation, some aspects of argumentation, crafting arguments, which will lead into a topic of your midterm essay, and I will try to decide soon about the topic for your midterm. So until then, have a good weekend and enjoy your essay assignment. Goodbye.